Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to react to this heated Piers Morgan debate where they discuss the Commonwealth, Harry and Meghan, and how they've affected race relations across the Commonwealth, and reparations, in particular, across the Commonwealth and in the UK. I'm assuming it's for, people such as Jamaicans, people from various parts of the West Indies. But apparently colonization is also mentioned. So I don't know, maybe I'll qualify. So let's take a look.
I won't get a look in.
Paul, let me start with you. I've got a problem with this constant looking back in history, feeling guilty for stuff that none of us in this era actually did, and then having to say sorry for everything that we didn't do, and even now, apparently having to pay people today for stuff that happened to their ancestors many generations before. I don't really get what that achieves.
We should learn from lessons of the past. We can't change anything, and we should move forward. But the Queen's greatest achievement, his mother's greatest achievement, was the Commonwealth of countries. She was very proud of that. I think if she could beam her down now, she would say, my Commonwealth. That should survive intact into the King's reign. So he should do whatever he can. Now, bear in mind, I've known this man for a very long time.
Yeah.
He has a voice, and he will say what he feels.
Here's the real problem he's got.
Yeah, the Queen was very proud of the Commonwealth. And I noticed in the Harry and Meghan documentary, the Netflix, whatever, they changed her speech and basically went over to images of her with a bunch of black people as if she was, oppressing them. They basically tried to create those optics. And they removed the part where she said she was there to serve the Commonwealth. They removed that part and basically made it sound like she was just praising colonization and that kind of thing. Now, as for me, if it wasn't for the Commonwealth, I wouldn't even be here in America, much less be born and raised in the UK. Because my parents moved to the UK, they were economic migrants, and they had that opportunity because they came from a Commonwealth country. And that's what the Commonwealth created for many of us. It gave us opportunities to come and live in the UK or, other Commonwealth countries and to have better opportunities. And till this day, because of what they did, I'm benefiting from that. I was able to have more opportunities growing up in the UK. So I'm grateful for the Commonwealth. I'm glad it was something that they took something that was negative and they turned it into something that was beneficial and positive for many of us, for people all over the Commonwealth. These are independent countries who volunteered to be a part of the Commonwealth. Nobody forced them to, and they don't have to have the Queen, the King now, as head of state. It's their choice. And many of them choose to have the monarch of the UK as the head of state. But now, with what's going on with Harry and Meghan, many of them are questioning that now because they're thinking, is this current royal family, a bunch of racists who couldn't handle the one biracial person being in their family and mistreated her? That's the impression that Harry and Meghan love to perpetuate because they couldn't be king and queen of the Commonwealth, so they seek to now destroy it. The Queen gave them a role that was especially for them, president and vice president of the Commonwealth Trust. She created that role for them, especially. And yes, they looked into the fact that Meghan is biracial, and I don't think she looks like many people in the Commonwealth, per se, the countries that are, black and brown people. I wouldn't say she exactly looks like them, but nevertheless, this is somebody of African heritage. So yeah, they were like, okay, this is a good role for her. This would be a great role for her. And they pushed them out there and, at the forefront when it came to the Commonwealth. But that went to their head. And now that they can't be a part of it, they wanted to, they're half in, half out. They basically wanted all the Commonwealth engagement so they could travel the world and, get all the glory. But they didn't want all the domestic engagements that were beneath them. So going to the old people's home, opening a community centre in Scunthorpe or wherever, that wasn't good enough for them. So that's why they wanted half in, half out. They wanted to pick and choose the engagements that involved, worldwide travel and dressing up in nice outfits and wearing tiaras. That's what they wanted. but they didn't want the other stuff. They wanted to keep the money that they made from royal status as well for themselves. They didn't want that money to go to charities. I mean, come on. And that's why we're here now. Race relations has been damaged across the Commonwealth because of them. The fact that Netflix manipulated the Queen's famous speech to make it sound like she was glorifying colonialism rather than talking about serving the Commonwealth says it all. That's their goal, is to basically create it as, the British Empire 2.0 and demonize it. That's their goal.
There's another voice yapping away
Yes.
about racism. Two voices. His son Harry
Yes.
and Harry's wife Meghan, who for 3 years have branded the royal family a bunch of callous racists. That is now turning up in these
Yes.
polls because, understandably, frankly,
Yes.
black people in the Commonwealth around the world
Yes.
are going, whoa, really? They're racist, these people? And yet they haven't produced a shred of evidence for any of it.
You and I know the royal family are not racist. And you and I know that they pressed the racist button on the Oprah Winfrey show.
Yeah,
And they never apologized to the Queen.
never.
She went to her grave thinking there was a racist in the royal family.
And after she died,
actually,
they said,
what happened?
We
Well,
never-
they didn't say that, the press said that.
mean to say it was racism?
Why
All right.
didn't you correct it, Harry? Why didn't you tell your
Well, we know
grand
why,
before
because
she
it
died?
made them, they weaponized racism and mental health to make themselves extremely rich.
I totally
All right, Imarn.
They knew exactly what they were doing. That's how they got to go on Oprah and come up with some juicy stories. They couldn't just go on Oprah and say, we wanted half in, half out, and they said no, so we left. They couldn't just go on Oprah and say that. They had to perpetuate the whole racism thing, and now they backtracked. Even the BLM woman had to admit they're full of it. Someone who has supported them through thick and thin, stood by their side, had to turn around and say, yeah, nah. She had to turn around and say they're frauds. She acknowledged that herself.
This is my problem. This has always been my problem with this racism narrative these two have spun without any evidence, is that people around the world, particularly people of colour, they believe it. And why wouldn't they believe it? They're hearing the first person who wasn't a white royal bride say they're racist, these people. So then the damage is palpable, it's tangible, and it will lead, I think, if we're not careful, to a load of these countries becoming republics and the beginning of the end of the monarchy.
Thank you for your salute.
So thank you.
All right, no problem. So first and foremost, my feelings on the royal family and racism are not predicated on Harry and Meghan's willingness to identify. That's the difference between me and you. We are talking about a country that was built off of racism, and we are referring to the oldest institution in this country that started it all. So that's the first thing. In terms of why black people and many others feel the way that we do, well, the monarchy is a symbol of white supremacy. Okay? White supremacy. That is the reason. Let me just
Why does
finish.
it make any
Let me just
difference if
finish.
King Charles...
Okay, I will say, she's saying that, for me, it's not about Harry and Meghan. That's great. But what he's saying is, for many, it is about Harry and Meghan. And this is what they have created. So it's all very well saying it's not about that for me, but for people across the Commonwealth, that is part of it. It is partly to do with Harry and Meghan. Because before all of this came, all this drama started, everything was going along swimmingly. They were president and vice president of the Commonwealth Trust. They didn't think the Commonwealth was, racist when they were given those roles. But then when they couldn't have what they wanted, they started demonizing the Commonwealth. And that has repercussions. It really does.
Charles says sorry, or why does it make... If he pays money, what difference does that make?
Okay. So
How does
reparations.
that combat racism?
No, it actually does. So let me.
The guy
just
hasn't
start.
got a
Let me
racist bone in his body. He's done more for racism than any public figure in the country. Why should he be paying for the sins of people hundreds of years ago?
Okay, so can I finish?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, the monarchy is a symbol of white supremacy, which is what black people have had to contend with for the last 400 years, notwithstanding the fact that Elizabeth, or every king and queen, from Elizabeth I.
You think
to
the
William
last
IV.
late
Let me
queen
finish
was a
this. I just
model of
asked
white
you.
supremacy?
Let me finish my point. You just asked me several questions. Let me finish
Well,
my
answer
point.
the question,
Right,
then.
I'm getting there, so just finish.
Obviously, we know how the monarchy, acquired their wealth, why they are where they are today. We know that they acquired their wealth from slavery, colonialism. That's indisputable. So, of course. But does that mean that the current royal family, does that mean that Charles is racist? Does that mean that William, Catherine, all of them are racist? When the only evidence of racism I've seen in the royal family is Harry.
Let me just finish, okay?
Hurry up.
So, every king and queen, from Elizabeth I to William IV, has supported and profited off of slavery. So this is about the fact that this country was built off of racism, and that's
this
the
country
point.
also
Wait, hold on a
led...
second. This country
you can't just keep
stems
talking.
from... No, because I haven't even finished my point.
You
Piers.
can't just
keep
make
interrupting.
outlandish statements about our royal family and not expect me to jump in.
Piers, you keep interrupting. Can I finish my point?
This country also led the world out of slavery.
Okay, so can I finish my point?
A
Is that
long
right?
time ago.
Can I finish my point, please?
Yes.
Perfect.
So please finish it.
I will, no problem, just be patient. So, every single king and queen from Elizabeth I to William IV over a 270-year period supported the enslavement of Africans and profited as a result. So it doesn't, it doesn't take any genius, hold on a second, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this country was built off of racism and it stems from white supremacy, all of which is directly attributed to the crown, slavery and colonialism. To answer your point, let me finish my point.
Keep talking.
Piers, you keep...
Okay, I must say, I'm usually, enjoy the way these debates go, but Piers isn't letting her finish, to be fair. He isn't letting her finish her point.
Interrupting.
Answer my question.
Let's have a conversation.
Answer my question.
Let's have a conversation.
We need mediation here, guys.
You spoke about slavery. Let me answer the point.
I asked you a specific question.
I want to
Why
answer
should
the point.
King Charles
Let me answer the
be
point.
either apologising for what happened centuries ago or paying money for it?
Okay, so what you're talking about is slavery. I'm not talking about slavery. Slavery can be traced back to Europe. The Greek slave trade to be specific in 400 BC, then the Roman Empire, and then we get to the Muslim conquest in 7th century.
And black people had slaves
So what
too,
we're talking about,
right?
exactly. So I'm not talking about
slavery
Piers.
comes in
I
many
am not
forms.
talking about
There is a lot of
slavery.
slavery around today.
So I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I'm talking about colonialism, neo-colonialism, racism, racial disparities, and the racist system of oppression and exploitation of black people and white supremacist attitudes, which have been rebanded under the
What's that got to do with King Charles?
I am telling you why he needs to apologise and pay reparations.
Why? What did he
It's
do?
not anything to do with slavery.
What did he do?
Okay, she's saying it's got nothing to do with slavery, but the whole talk of reparations is to do with slavery. That's 99% of people who talk about reparations here in the US and in the UK are referring to what they believe is due to them because of slavery. 400 years, however long you believe it went on for. That's why they're talking about it. Now, we're talking about colonization. I have trouble saying that word. If we're talking about colonization, then that means I might get a look in for reparations. And guess what? Even people who aren't black, Asians, we have countries in Asia that were colonized, India, Singapore, Hong Kong. That's not just going to be black people then, is it? I mean, even white people. So, yeah. Again, it comes down to where does it stop? Where does it end? Where does it begin? And is there any amount of money that is going to make up for hundreds and hundreds of years of slavery? Of course not. No amount of money is going to make up for that. Do I believe people should have got reparations after slavery was abolished? Absolutely. Because guess what? They would have benefited from it. The people who were affected by it would have benefited from the reparations. But in 2023, I cannot believe we're having this conversation when you've had your whole life to get your own reparations. If you live in the UK, if you live in America, you've had your whole life to get your reparations. Now, I remember the Prince's Trust. That has done a lot for regular people who, wanted to start businesses, who didn't come from wealth. The Prince's Trust has done a lot for regular people, it's especially or including black people. Idris Elba wouldn't be where he is today if it wasn't for the Prince's Trust. Do you think he's worried about reparations? No, because he's living in his reparations as we speak. He's not worried about handouts. He's getting his own reparations. I remember one guy who benefited from the Prince's Trust, he was being interviewed on TV. He said, because of slavery, I'm due this money. This money is mine. I'm entitled to it because King Charles built his wealth. His family built their wealth off of slavery. So I'm entitled to this money. But that wasn't the same as getting a handout for nothing. That was you apply and you basically present, just like you would if you were applying for a business loan. You have to, draw up a business plan and justify receiving that money. And it's given to you for you to start a business. So for me, that's getting your own reparations. And things like the Prince's Trust and just living in a country with economic opportunity, this is my stance on reparations. I don't think anybody in 2023 is entitled to reparations because you've had plenty of opportunity to get your own, to enjoy living in a country that affords you economic opportunities that people in other parts of the world could only dream of. And this is my main issue with reparations. It is not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I truly believe in my heart of hearts that it is not going to happen. So why are we talking about it? Nobody is going to get, what was it they were asking for in California? We had someone say they want $200 million. That's how much each black person in California is entitled to, apparently. 200 million, even $1.5 million was said to not be enough. Now, obviously, there's no amount of money that's going to make up for slavery anyway. That we can all agree with. But to be offered 1.5 million and well, not to be offered, but for that to be put out there, for you to say that isn't enough, tells me that reparations is not going to happen. You're not going to get 200 million because where's that money going to come from? So it's unrealistic. That's the point I'm trying to make. Someone said, apparently, the Biden administration, remember when the Biden administration offered $400 and something thousand to illegal immigrants? Remember that? Did the illegal immigrants get that? No. But he offered that to them because he wants them to be future voters. That's why he offered that to them. And someone brought that up in the meeting recently in California, that you offered that to illegal immigrants, but you're offering, 1.5 million to black people. So it's not proportionate. Just like with the proposal about giving them $400,000 didn't happen, I don't believe the reparations is going to happen. This is what is put out there. Number one, it causes division. It causes great division because people are like, it's going to come out of taxpayers' money. That's where the money is going to come from. In California, apparently it's like 800 billion in order to pay out reparations. That's what they're estimating. So some estimates from economists have projected that the state could owe upwards of 800 billion or more than 2.5 times its annual budget in reparations to black people. And the people who qualify, this is in California, so I'm not talking about the UK, they said that it's descendants of enslaved or free black people who were in the country by the end of the 19th century. Okay, so that's what's going on over here. And again, ain't gonna happen. It's a pipe dream that they're selling you to get your vote and to cause division. Because the more people are divided, the more power they gain. The more power they gain. Because when people are, aren't divided, they can see clearly what's going on and won't stand for it. But as long as people are divided, discussing reparations, because people are like, I'm going to have to pay this then through my taxes. My state is going to become bankrupt because it's, 2.5 times the budget. So obviously it's not something that is feasible. That's my thing. Get your own reparations. And I'm not talking about looting Target, because some people have suggested that is reparations. BLM have suggested that.
Somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes. That's reparations. That is reparations. Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. They're going to get their money back. My people aren't getting anything.
Funny enough. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about through economic opportunities, through business. You can apply for grants and things of that nature, like the Prince's Trust. I mean, that's a great way to get reparations too. In your local area, believe me, there are a number of different grants that you can apply for. You'll be surprised. You can look it up now. Do that. Start a business like Madam C.J. Walker, Black Wall Street. If all of that can happen, where there were racist laws against black people, then today you have no excuse, in my opinion. Now, I know my opinion is not appreciated by some because I'm British and blah, 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 whatever. But let's get back to talking about reparations in the UK.
I'm telling you, colonialism, neo-colonialism,
He didn't do
racism,
that.
racial disparities and a racist system and white supremacist attitudes. That is the legacies of the crown, slavery and colonialism that still remain to this day. Let me finally get my point across. Lord,
You've
need
got
to
your
let me
point
finish.
across, but here's my point, my counterpoint.
He does need to let her finish.
Any of that got to do with King Charles,
Okay, so
who actually has been, I think, one of the great standard bearers in royal history for actually promoting racial equality and tackling racial injustice.
So let me
Yet
explain.
you want him to be issuing grovelling apologies for people hundreds of years ago, and you want him to pay money.
Okay, so I think black people would be far more inclined to get over it if it wasn't for the fact that the legacies of the crown, slavery and colonialism still remain, which includes racism, racial disparities and the racist global system of oppression and exploitation of black people. Which
All right, you're not answering my question.
I am, but you don't want to accept it.
I don't agree that black people aren't oppressed. Can we just get that out there? I don't believe we're oppressed in the UK or in the US here. There's not one racist law that we have to contend with. Not one. And don't let them, you had them convince you that requiring an ID is racist. You had them convincing you of that. When everybody requires an ID here to vote. So no, I don't believe there's any racist laws that are preventing, that are holding black people back. Yes, racism still exists. I'm not denying that. But in terms of systemically, I don't believe that, no, because I would have encountered that by now. I've been in this country long enough. Grew up in the UK. Again, there's no laws that are stopping me from doing anything that someone of a different race can do.
You haven't explained
you also have the
what's
wealth
that
of
got to do
economic
with King
expansion
Charles?
as a result of exploitation of black people.
I will acknowledge, though, the whole civil rights era and, fighting for equality, that was pretty recent. So I understand when people say that reparations should be paid for what happened, with Jim Crow and things, laws such as that, because that wasn't that long ago. People who were affected by that are still here today, obviously. Like Ruby Bridges is only 67, I think. And she was the first young black girl to go into a previously segregated school. And she had to have, bodyguards walking with her into the school. And she had one teacher because she wasn't in other classes at first. She could, so she had to sit in the class with one teacher, who she praises till this day, actually. She commends the people who helped her, the white people who helped her. She actually commends them. Her teacher, the people who walked into the school with her. She's only 67. So I understand that some people believe reparations should be paid for that era as well. It's not just slavery. I understand that argument as well.
Do you also have
Let Tessa speak now.
Hold on. You haven't even let me finish, Piers. No problem. You've
done 9/10 of the talk.
No, you didn't let me
Tessa,
finish.
you've heard the debate.
I think you're both wrong, actually. On the one hand, we celebrate, and you certainly do, Piers, the idea of monarchy as continuity.
Yeah.
Going way back when. I mean, I read an article this week that traced the anointing oils to the Old Testament and King Solomon. You can't pick and choose which bits of that continuous historic line you like.
Yes, I can.
Well,
how is that I'm
you
wrong?
can, but it's hugely,
But how is it that I'm wrong?
problematic.
How is that wrong? What are you
And I
talking
would
about?
counter to you, where we have the face of history and the physical form of history in our royal family.
White
When,
supremacy,
when
that's what
for
I'm talking
example,
about.
France, the Republic, outlawed slavery much later. And in the civil wars in America,
keep
that's what
talking
it took
about
in
slavery.
America,
Let
much
me tell
later.
you.
So
You
so
keep
my
talking
point
about
is, no, two
slavery.
seconds.
No.
Let me finish my point.
You
Imarn.
see, you
Let her
want to
finish.
interrupt, but you interrupted me several
let me
times,
finish
Piers. I
one
see
You
more
did all the
hypocrisy.
talking.
I see your hypocrisy right now. It's fine. I did all the
I
talking.
think
You
what
kept
you do,
interrupting me.
what we're doing here is
Let
we're
her speak.
conflating an individual
Back at you.
family with institutions of state. You can't expect a king to apologise. He doesn't have that power.
It's
He
about
would
what
have
he
to be
represents.
told to apologise
what
by
he
the government
represents. He's already
because it's an
apologised,
institution of
Tessa, so I don't know
state.
Do I have to? All right.
He's talked about
I don't
sorry.
Excuse me.
He
Time
hasn't-
out.
he
Time
hasn't
out.
actively apologised.
Time out.
And in terms of slavery, hold on a second. You keep talking about slavery. Let's just be clear about slavery. Yes, you did end slavery. You've made that point and you've made that point, so let me address it. You did end slavery, and there was a clause in the contract that said, for example, that Jamaicans had to work up to 45 hours a week for the following 4 years, whilst you simultaneously paid off the slave owners and left the enslaved in their countries to rot. And then you transitioned to colonialism, where slavery still continued, and then you transitioned to the
I agree.
Where you continue to assert your dominance, exploit black people, and do it in a far
I
dignified
agree,
way. while
Imarn.
simultaneously
I
This is
agree.
all-
It's
the-
repugnant.
There are also... Excuse me.
Nobody's refuting.
Can we all stop
the
talking?
repugnance.
All
Nobody's
right.
refuting the repugnance of that
Can we
period of
please
history.
time out? The big...
Okay, but that's not people today. It's not. So it's that she keeps saying you, and it's concerning to me that she keeps saying you as if she sees that in all white people. That's how it's coming across to me. Now, for me, I don't see myself as an outsider when it comes to here in the US, and when growing up in the UK. Well, I did at some point, but when I matured, I was like, no, this is my country. I'm not an outsider. I don't look at people of different races and think you and me are different in terms of how British we are. No, I don't see myself as an outsider like that. And I think it's a shame when many black people here and in the UK, they kind of see themselves as outsiders. No, I don't think that's the healthiest way to look at things.
The biggest problem with slavery right now is there are between 7 to 10 million slaves in India. Last time I looked...
No one cares about that, clearly.
That is not as a result of white supremacy causing modern-day slavery. I would rather we expend all our energy on current slavery issues than going back in the past, as we now do with... We now go back in the past...
Yes, but people are saying it's because of slavery, though. She's saying she's not talking about slavery, but we're here to discuss, Prince Charles apologising for slavery. That's the discussion.
For everything, wallowing in self-guilt about stuff that had nothing to do with us. Oh,
yes. Legacies.
I think Prince William said something kind of to like an apology, and Charles has said that they regret, the atrocities of the past, something to that effect. So again, it doesn't change anything, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, because you weren't there, I weren't there. I mean, it's just, okay. And let's be real, that's not going to stop people from feeling angry about the past. That's something that has to come from you as a person. It's not going to be contingent on what a white person does. And if it is, I think you're putting a bit too much weight in white people. The white people aren't your God. It's not up to them to take away your anger, to take away your feelings of feeling inferior. That's up to you, because you're not inferior, and you shouldn't be angry about something that doesn't affect you. Yes, you can read about the past when you're reading history and that, and yes, if you feel angry, of course, but in your everyday life, no.
Conveniently. Legacies of the crown favouring colonialism. You ignored that conveniently.
Okay.
This is such
Please
a
continue,
negative.
Paul.
This is a
Legacy's
negative
going
side.
back how far? How far do you want to go back?
400 years black people have been constant.
Okay,
But
so
what
I
do you
want...
them to do?
Okay,
I told you that.
so
I
do you
told
think
you
the
that.
Vikings should be paying me money for what they did to me?
See, you're talking about slavery. I am not. I already explained
I'm not
that
talking about
to you.
slavery.
I'm talking about colonialism,
You're not listening to me,
neocolonialism, racism and racial disparities that still contend.
Stop shouting. You're not listening to what I said.
You're not listening to me.
Should
This is why I'm
the
getting
Vikings and the Romans also, through their modern-day ancestors, be paying me reparations for what they did to my family?
So I'm not talking about slavery. I'm talking about colonialism.
It's not slavery. You're not listening to me.
Yes, I am.
The Vikings and Romans didn't make us slaves.
No, yes. You're talking about the Roman Empire, which included
No,
slavery.
I'm
That's
talking
what
about the
you're talking
Romans
about.
and the Vikings coming over here and causing immeasurable harm
Yes,
to my
which included
ancestors.
An empire and
Should they be-
slavery.
should
An
Italians
empire and slavery.
and
I'm talking
Norwegians
about
be paying
colonialism
me
and
reparations?
neocolonialism. There's a
In one
difference.
sentence,
There's a difference.
Iman, in one sentence.
Go ahead.
What do you want? In one sentence, what's your
Reparations.
idea?
Thank you, Tessa.
Money.
You want money?
You want money?
Reparations.
You want money? Okay.
Reparations.
Then I want money from the Vikings and the Romans. Paul,
I think
Paul, be very...
Yeah, where does it stop? And no amount of money is going to... And to be honest, I honestly believe if you are someone that is holding out for reparations, that you don't think that you can get your own reparations, that you can't, be successful within your own right, and it's contingent on you getting reparations, more than likely that is the sort of person who will get those reparations and squander it and be back where they started. Seriously, if someone is unable to figure it out now, with the resources that they have available to them. And now I understand we all have different circumstances, of course, but there's people from, various walks of life who have made it in terms of learning a trade or going to school, being successful in business, being successful in sports, whatever, from all walks of life. Now, so if you can't figure it out without, a handout, then more than likely you are the sort of person who is going to get the reparations and that money will be gone tomorrow. And again, people will be asking for a handout again, another handout. That's how I see this going. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's a pipe dream, and I think it's a distraction, a huge distraction. That meeting went on for 9 hours in California.
Trying to talk about now, yet you research back to slavery and you say nothing about slavery. Nothing. So the equivocal number from the 1860s for 40 acres today is $200 million for each and every African American. You're not supposed to be afraid. You're not supposed to be afraid. You're just supposed to tell the truth.
On behalf of myself, my family, and my ancestors, I want to publicly apologize to the African American community for our ignorance, our arrogance, our insensitivity to your cause, and for any part we may have had in the atrocities done to your people.
And if our economists don't evaluate those numbers, well, the $1.2 million, that's a drop in the bucket. I'd rather there be $10 million. Reverend Brown, in fact, $5 million is not enough when you look at the atrocities that happened to our ancestors.
What they could have done when people come together and discuss how to help their community, they could have achieved a lot more than discussing reparations, in my opinion.
No, but the Commonwealth is a force for good.
Yes.
Commonwealth countries. Yes, it is. They do.
Absolutely.
They work for each other. It's a family, a community of families that help each other. That's why it was formed. And
No, you benefit more. That's why it's formed.
no, we don't benefit.
She keeps saying you. She's talking about what, white people? She keeps saying you. I don't know. I don't get that.
They benefit as well. They do benefit. Of course they do. Yes, they do.
Yes, I'm not saying that they don't. What I'm saying is that we benefit, you benefit, you benefit
Everyone
more.
benefits.
Exactly.
All right.
You benefit,
Imarn,
you benefit,
Imarn,
you benefit more. That's
Imarn,
white supremacy.
Imarn, how much money do you want from me?
She thinks all white people. Yeah, she buys into the whole white privilege thing. She buys into the whole white privilege thing. And it's funny because here, when you look up the races of people and what their earnings are, it's not white people earning the highest here. So if white privilege was a real thing, they would be the highest earners in this country, and they're not. So yeah, very uncomfortable to watch at times. Piers did interrupt her, and I understand her frustration. She got frustrated during that whole discussion.
That's what I keep talking about.
How much money do you want from
the
me?
National Commission on Reparations said that Jamaica, for example, is
How much do you want from me?
1.2 trillion.
How much do you want from me?
It's not about my feelings and not from you. I'm not. This isn't about me. And
We've all got to chip in, right? So
Yes. But
how much do you want?
This
How
isn't
much
about-
money could I
That's
give
what
you
I'm saying.
for something that had nothing to do with me, right?
That's what I want.
How much money could I give
No, we're
you
talking
to
about
make
the legacy.
to make
Keep ignoring that
racism better?
conveniently. You
Nothing
keep ignoring
is
that
the answer.
conveniently.
Yeah, but it's going to affect everyday people. The money has to come from somewhere. So it will come from taxes. We can have this discussion all day. The chances of us actually seeing reparations, of anybody seeing reparations, are next to none. So if you weren't going to get reparations, how would you live your life to ensure that you're successful, you can provide for your family, you can achieve your goals? How would you go about that? I think that's the question, rather than waiting for reparations. That more than likely will never come. Uncomfortable debate. He did interrupt her, yes. It was uncomfortable to watch at times. I would have liked more history from Tess. She comes on these panels and she's a historian, but where's the history? I want to learn some history. But, So let me know what you think. Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.